All right, my financially intentional people. I'm super excited to be joined today by Grace Vandecruze. And I just really want to get into her incredible story from being homeless to being a millionaire and just the amazing things she's been able to accomplish over her lifestyle. So welcome, Grace. I'm super excited to get into your story and I'm super excited to have met you.
Thank you, Nasima. It
Mhm.
is so great to speak to a sister, gladiator, pioneer, propelling forward, knowing what the power of taking one step in front of the next is and
Yeah.
just keep moving forward. I am pleased to be here, pleased to share with you and your audience, and looking forward to our conversation.
I really, really appreciate you. And I was just saying in pre-interview that I'm just super impressed by everything that you've been able to accomplish. You have been able to accomplish many first. And I always say, even though it's 2024 and it's sad that we're still accomplishing first, it does not diminish the fact that it is incredible what you've done. But before we get into that, I want to just talk about like your background, where you started and like how did you go from being homeless to a millionaire? Because so many people can really gain a lot of insight and a lot of inspiration from you.
Absolutely. Look, we're a generation of first because we're answers to our ancestors' prayers. We didn't
Mm.
get here by our own, and we are standing on the shoulders of giants. So
Hmm.
there's a wonderful Nigerian proverb, and it says, wherever the stream flows, it never forgets its source. And my
Hmm.
source is my grandmother. My grandmother was born in a small country, Guyana, South America. She had 9 biological children, she and my granddad. But in spite of their limited resources, they found room in their hearts to adopt 5 young sisters who lost their mom.
Wow.
My grandparents, particularly my grandmother, raised 14 children. My mom was the second oldest of the 14. My mom and my parents had 7 children, and I am the second oldest of the 7.
Wow.
So as a result, my grandmother had 52 grandchildren. I said that right. 52 grandchildren.
Wow.
Nasima, as we're speaking here in this small circle and not so small audience, I can assure you that I was her favorite.
Out of 52, I
Out
can't,
of
yes,
52. Out of
I
52.
could see
Oh,
that.
yes. I just knew it. My grandmother would hold my hands and she would look at me in the eye. Now, remember, she had very little education and she always said to me, she learned to read and write by reading the King James Version of the Bible.
Mm.
She'd hold my hands and she would say, Grace, you have lengthened my years and you have blessed my eyesight. How Shakespearean it is for a woman to speak like that,
No.
given her background. But her most treasured words to me were believe beyond your limits. And
Yeah.
as a child, I did not know, I could not appreciate, I could not understand what believe beyond your limits mean. But
Mm.
as I live my life and as I ascend throughout my career and ascend with my education and climb mountains, because I'm a mountain climber, I know what believe your limits are. And
Hmm.
it has permeated my life.
Oh my God, I love that. Believe beyond your limits. We
Believe
all
beyond
need
your
that
limits.
message.
Yes. So just to continue in my background, when I was 14 years, my parents and 7 of us, 7 children, moved to Brooklyn, New York. And our focus was the American dream, pursuing an education, and we all pursued an education. I excelled in my high school. I discovered in my high school that I had an aptitude for accounting. And the
Mm.
head of my accounting at my high school was also an adjunct professor at Pace University. And I went to Pace. And interestingly, little did I know that that tenure at Pace would actually punctuate one of the most defining moments of my life. And
Mm.
that occurred in the summer between my second and third year. On a beautiful summer day, I went home, and as I'm heading from the subway, Saratoga Avenue, heading to the brownstone, all I saw was lots of fire trucks and great commotion. And yet, as I got closer, I realized that the fire and the smoke and all the chaos had to do with where we lived.
Oh my
That
God.
our brownstone that my parents had worked so hard for us to secure, because it was almost impossible for us to find an apartment for nine.
Yeah.
And we got a landlord who agreed, and there that apartment was now up in flames.
Oh my God.
For my parents, that moment, what would have been the American dream became the American nightmare. And I remembered standing outside. There were so many people that came to console us, and one by one we came home to discover this complete demise of where we live, and that everything we consider dear and precious was just ashes.
Mm,
But amidst that ashes, my dad was determined to keep us together as a family unit. So while several people said, look, why don't you split up into twos and threes and go your separate ways until you get yourself together and then come back? My dad, who always reminded us that the saddest day of his life was when he was orphaned at the age of 8
mm,
and was separated from his two brothers. And he said, there is no way we are going to separate. And the only place in New York City that we could have taken refuge in as a family of 7 was a New York City homeless shelter.
mm,
So a day that began very normal for me, going to school and working and then coming home, ended quite differently. I had all of our possessions that I can salvage in that fire. All of it fit in a 13-gallon trash bag with room
mm,
left to spare. That trash bag, me, and my entire family was then that evening walking into homeless shelter.
mm,
That experience was both traumatic and transformative, because I would have never imagined that I would be sitting in this shelter among strangers trying to put the pieces back together. But in the midst of the uncertainty, it's when my grandmother's words became so real to me: believe beyond your limits. She meant to tell me that whenever you plan your goals, never base it on your circumstances.
mhm,
That your mission and purpose and goals in life are way beyond the confines of your limited space. They're way
mhm,
beyond all of the confines of you couldn't, you should have, you might have. It's beyond that. It's beyond, way beyond the stereotypes that people tell you and feed into you. That if you are to believe in yourself and what you can do and what God can accomplish in your life, there is nothing you can't do. It is exceedingly abundantly and beyond your goals, your vision, and your dreams. So, through lots of prayers, through the love of my family, through the bonds that we share, I continued my education. I graduated on time. I then started my career, first in accounting. Then I went to the Wharton Business School and I got an MBA. And
nice.
that started my dream of working on Wall Street. And then, after a very successful career in Wall Street, where I was the first to be promoted to managing director as an African American and a woman, the first to enter a number of boardrooms. I remember once I went to a company and I got to the pinnacle, the top floor, and I entered the boardroom and I looked around. There was no one like me. But I always remembered that I am not in the room by any accident, that I'm in the room because of my accomplishments. I'm in the room because of the skills and expertise I bring to the table. And I always seize the moment. I seize the moment to speak my insights, to speak, to really bring forward some of the key solutions and strategies that the company should be bringing forth. But I also knew that A lot of times I would raise my hand and say, "Where's the restroom?" And it's not even on the floor of the boardroom.
Hmm.
I'm here to tell you that things have changed and they have progressed, but we still have a long way to go.
Oh my God. Everything, first of all, you're just so captivating and your story is just so incredible. And I just want to give kudos to your father for having that foresight of
Yes,
making sure that you guys stay together by any means necessary. And I
absolutely.
know that that had to be a truly humbling experience because I know it took a lot for him to bring all of you guys to the country only to have your home stripped from you and to have to rebuild from there was super challenging. Kudos to your dad for holding strong. And I think that his resilience and your grandmother's resilience and all of the people who have been your ancestors and come before you have poured into you so much. Like you said, nothing, you're not there by accident. Like you're
Yes,
destined to be
indeed.
there. But being a Black woman, being a woman from a Caribbean background that has an accent, all of these things that can count against you. Can you talk about all of the adversity that you've had to overcome to get to where you've gotten to?
Absolutely. I just want
Mhm.
to leave your audience with one key point. The world talks of Blackness as an adversity. And I'm going to tell you, Blackness is a powerful, positive, impactful superpower that you have.
Mhm.
Make no mistake about it and don't get it
Right.
twisted. My
That's right.
Blackness is my superpower, meaning
Mhm.
it's a uniqueness that I bring to the table. It's a point of view. Where I grew up and how I grew up, my middle name could have been blood, sweat, and tears. And I am in the boardroom where they're developing products, they're expanding financial solutions to mass group of people. Guess who can add a great deal of value? This is not a time to be quiet. This is a time to understand that as a masterpiece, divinely created and made in God's image, that the fact that you're Black, whoever told you that was a negative? It's a positive. And
Mhm.
it's amazing to me how we can take positives and make it into negatives, and when we should be doing the reverse. I think we should get up and thank God for how He made us and what skills and talents and treasures that are buried deep within us that the world is waiting to hear. So I want to make sure that every day I walk as a Black, African American, Caribbean, divinely appointed child of God, that when I speak, I am bringing forth treasures buried within me, that my soul sings and my career is my ministry, that this is no accident. This is the time for us to create courageously walk in our purpose.
I love that. I love that. Yes, we are the prize. We are. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of people can use that to make excuses, right? There's so many things against me. How am I supposed to be successful? Like, we have so many things going for us. We have so much to bring to the table. We have unique perspectives and experiences that are going to be an asset to any organization. Heavily lean into those things. I really, really love that.
Absolutely.
I love that. But you talk about going into the space of accounting and then moving up in these organizations. I talk to people that are in the professional finance space all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they are really, really good corporately, like with money and all of those kind of things. But that does not necessarily translate into being a good steward with your money personally.
Yes.
How have you developed your personal finances in order to get from being homeless to a millionaire?
Okay, great question. So you brought up a very important point. You know, when I was growing up, they would say the cobbler has kids with the worst shoes, the dentist have kids with the worst teeth, and the fact that you're an expert in managing all billions of institutional money, does it translate to you managing your personal money? And you and I know the answer is no. And one of the things I talked about in the very first chapter
Ooh.
of my book, Homeless to Millionaire, is one of the reasons why we have accumulated more wealth in this generation than ever before. Why is it we are not further along?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that the resourcefulness of my grandmother and our ancestors that they had to, we look back and we're amazed that with very precious little, they were able to do so much. What's stopping us to multiplying what God has put in our hands? And one of the things I have stated in my book is that we all have a money history. Our families have a money history. We have a personal money history. Our ethnic group has money history. And we know that if we examine our money histories, and I put a roadmap in there to make it quite step by step of how you can look at this. If we examine our money history and look at our very first money memory, what is your first money memory? And I shared mine, and it's an amazing story of how I first had this jolt in me of, wow, we really don't have that much. Okay,
Yeah.
we really don't have that much. When you're a child and you grew up with lots of family around you and lots of love, as far as you rich, of
Yes, yes,
course
yes,
you're
yes,
rich.
yes.
You're rich in love, you're rich in support and prayers,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't have a consciousness of resources and what people are sacrificing to make your life as comfortable as it is until you get that awareness. And that awareness came to me when I was about 7, and we had a special visitor. My mom was doing her best, but she was lacking some key things. And
Mm-hmm.
it became so real to me. And in that moment that I was helping her prepare and realize that we were lacking some key ingredients here that only money can fix, and
Mm-hmm.
money we did not have, there was this overwhelming a feeling within me of shame and embarrassment. And oh my gosh, in a culture where hospitality is so important, we're about to disappoint this guest of mine and this important guest of mine. And there was so much happening around me. And the book went on to say that I felt a bit comfortable because my mom joked about what we didn't lack, and the
Mm-hmm.
guest went along with it and he laughed about it, and so that was their coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
But the shame lived with me, the feeling of lack lived with me. And so you can have a whole lot, but if you haven't healed the pain within you of the lack, you can have a lot, but never use it to the maximum potential that you have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I talked about the parable. The one who did the worst with their resources, so one had 1 talent, the other had 2, and the other had 5. The one that did the worst was the one with the 1. The one that had the least amount says, oh, no, 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 I've got to hide this. I've got to bury it. I'm going to lose it. We are
Mm-hmm.
so terrified of losing what we have in our hands that we don't use it to our maximum potential. So, first is to make an assessment of where we are in terms of our money history. Understand that your first money memory is still living in your head every single day, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. Understand that we get up every day and we have to heal ourselves consciously and unconsciously, and money is a key to that. And then talk about how we rewrite our money script. We have to rewrite it. And we are not good stewards of our money unless we're intentional about it, unless we make it a daily effort, a daily
Mm-hmm.
step by step, a daily prayer, a daily affirmations. Affirmations are in my book because it's an unconscious healing that will then manifest in a conscious way of how you manage money.
Oh, I love all of that. I love all of that. That's so good. I know a lot of people would be like, it's easy to be good with your money when you make a lot of money. That's not true either, because it's not about how much you make, it's what you do with that money. And if I'm sure you've made first, you know, in the boardrooms, but you've also made a lot of firsts within your family. Like, if you don't have someone close to you to model those things, it's really hard to
It
be a
is.
good steward with your money.
It is.
Yeah.
It is a
Yeah.
very, yes. And let me tell you what happens if you don't heal the trauma within with money.
Mm-hmm.
And we see it all the time. If you don't heal the trauma with money, when you have money, okay, and you're holding on to it, whatever you use, you're using it unwisely. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to run to the Louis Vuitton store and get designer bags and you will flash because you remember when your mom put on hand-me-down clothes on your body and you're going to say not me ever, no, 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 and you are flashing in a way that's costing you so much to buy depreciable assets so that you can impress those around you and say, look, I've got it. I've got it. However, okay, it doesn't help if what we have in the bank is not reflective of our self worth. I'll
Mm-hmm.
give you an example. I have a good friend who's a financial advisor, and she said the celebrity was coming in and they rolled out the red carpet. He came in, his entourage came in, they're in the boardroom, and the first thing a wealth advisor will ask you is, let's do an inventory of what you have. And so he listed all his assets, and they were grand: the homes, the mansions, the cars, everything luxury. And then he listed his liabilities. And your liabilities are your debt you owe. And as he's listing them and he's listing them, slowly the room got very, very quiet because the liabilities were exceeding the assets. And my
Mm-hmm.
friend said something to me that I'll always remember. She said, I looked across him in the room. Harry's head to toe dripping in designer, dripping in jewelry, head to toe. And all I can say to myself is, oh my gosh, he is wearing his wealth.
Mm.
Okay. And if you don't understand the pain within around money, heal it, you are likely to wear your wealth. And designers are counting on it. I'm telling you, I've been around a lot of wealthy people. Wealthy people do not wear designer outfits. Look at the richest people on the planet and see how plainly they dress. There's nothing to impress, there's nothing to prove. And unless we heal the emotional hurt, our net worth can never be greater than our self worth. And many of us are suffering from just such poor self worth because we've been programmed. And it's time to change this script. It's time to know that the fact that you had a background like you've had is stepping stone to a greater future that's planned for you. So my book is a step-by-step guide, and I wrote this book as if my grandmother was with me in the room and she
Mm-hmm.
would understand it, because I understand we're filled with a world with lots of noise, financial jargon. It's hard to understand anything, and people are so confused. They just stand there in a very paralyzed state because they're like, I don't know what to do, and I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
lose my money.
Yeah.
So I have really put, here's a guide, here's how we educate ourselves, here's how we move along in a state of comfort. And I've also created some master classes to really hold your hand through the process.
I love that. I love that. Your book seems like an excellent resource for people. Who is your target audience? I know who you wanted it to come from, like the voice of your grandmother, but who do you think can benefit the most from this book?
Sure. So my target audience are people like me. You weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth, didn't come from wealthy parents. You're the first in your family to make the most amount of money. You find yourself sitting where you're financially able to pay your expenses and you have money to invest. But then you're saying, where should I put this money?
Mm-hmm.
This course is for those who really want to leave a financial legacy. We've had ancestors who died and left the future generation with nothing.
Nothing.
They didn't understand how insurance worked. They didn't have any life insurance. They didn't understand what a stock is, that they're safe stock that put away for a lifetime. They didn't know how to plan for a future because they were looking after basic needs. So they lived from month to month. I say it's time for us to live from decades to decades, centuries to centuries, and the wealthy plan for 3 generations in the future.
Yes, I love that. You describe basically my audience, like who typically makes up my audience is typically first generation professionals that make six figures and above, but were never taught about money. And so don't really know what to do, but know that they don't want to leave the next generation and their kids with zero. They don't want to start the next generation with zero. We have done that too many times, but
Yeah,
there, like you said, there's so much noise out there. It's just so hard to know, like, where do you start? Who do you listen to? Who can you trust? Especially because these are people who usually get targeted by people in the financial space that don't necessarily have their best interest at heart. So it's
correct.
very hard to be trusting and know what the right path is. And like I said, there's this fear, like you said, of I just got this. I don't
Hmm.
want to lose this. And there's this
Yes,
obligation from friends, from family, from yourself to make sure that you're successful. But it's challenging. And so it
yes,
drives a lot of people to paralysis.
yes, it
Yeah.
does. It does. And we're here to help. We're here to
Yes.
change that. We're here to shift it. And the one thing I will say is whenever I have a big family, of course, and whenever the nieces and nephews come around, the cousins, kids, I'm talking about stocks. I'm giving them
Mm-hmm.
gifts of stocks. I want to shift the conversation with them to, hey, you can build wealth now. You can save for college now. There are things you can do now
Mm-hmm.
because we know that instant gratification is a killer to financial wealth and abundance. So
Mm-hmm.
I just want to train them earlier and really shift the conversations around our dining room table. I've always find that the room lights up when we talk about the power of the purse or what's in your wallet.
Mm-hmm.
And because people, there are always treasures that people discover that they didn't know that they have. They didn't know that they could save automatically so easily, so naturally. And I just want that to be a natural part of our journey.
Being as successful as you are, like in your familiar space, do you feel like you have an obligation to make sure that everybody else in your family is good? Or do you feel like people place any particular pressure on you to be able to provide for them?
Interesting. One of the keys to financial well being is setting healthy boundaries with people.
Yeah.
And so many times, what I call is the black tax. The
Mm-hmm.
one who is the most successful get calls for the most amount of loans, get called for, hey, sister, can you help me out? That sort of thing. And I have to tell you, you will learn very quickly that the best you can do is say no, no, just no.
That is a full sentence. Yes.
Yes, it's a full sentence. You don't have to provide an explanation. No, you don't need to tell them that you've got this bill and that bill. No, because they'll argue with you. Someone who calls
Mm-hmm.
you for money thinks you're obligated. And the only tax I put on myself is that I'm blessed to be a blessing, and the best blessing I can give is the gift of education. I'd rather teach you how to fish than to give you a fish because that fish is going
Mm-hmm.
to last you for one meal, but the teaching how to fish will last you a lifetime and beyond. Yes. So my relatives, if they ask me for money, the first thing I would say is, did you read my book? Did you read my book? Did you know that you could have invested so that you'd have a rainy day fund? Did you
Mm-hmm.
read? And I'm like, if you haven't read my book, you're really not interested in upgrading your financial well being. And if you're not interested in upgrading your financial well being, then it doesn't matter how you tell me you'll pay me back, I cannot have any assurance of your words. And it's so interesting. I have a son who is my middle child, and he was in college and he read my book. What makes me so proud of him is not only did he read my book, Kyle read my book and then called me and asked me questions.
Nice.
And one of the nuggets that stood out for him is that I recommend an app called Acorn,
Mm-hmm.
ACORN, where every time you use a credit card, they round it up to the nearest dollar, and the change gets put directly into an investment account. In addition, you can decide you can automatically save on a monthly basis and so forth. But also, Acorn has a referral program for each person you refer. They'll give you $50, anywhere between $50 to $100. So that's like an instant way. Kyle was at Wake Forest University. He was very popular with his class. And so not only did he call me up, he said, I'm downloading Acorns because in my book, I put a snapshot of my Acorn.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I'm downloading Acorn. I started to use it. I'm talking to my friends about it. And by the time he graduated, that kid who wasn't barely 21 had over 10,000 is an acorn. Now, that's the child that I would be very comfortable
Let him
giving
borrow
money to
some money.
invest
Yeah.
or leaving an inheritance to because good stewards of the funds. But based on what I see happening in the world, I always tell my siblings' children, my nieces and nephews, and all, I said, did you read on Grace's book? Did you read it? There are
No,
treasures in there.
I love that. First of all, when you said middle child, first, my kids are really young. So I hope that they get to that point of financial acumen. But my middle child is my problem child. So I thought you were going to tell me a middle child story.
No, this middle child he's amazing.
No, but also we use Acorns too. My daughter has actually been a part of an Acorns campaign. So
Oh,
so she has some content for Acorn that she does. And that's my oldest daughter. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. The biggest gift we can give is financial education. But I have to ask, as an immigrant, people say it's an obligation for you to give back to people who aren't as fortunate to you, like in Guyana. What do you say? Do you contribute to families back home? And what does that look like? Or how do you handle that?
sure. So,
Mhm.
first of all, we're blessed to be a blessing and we do give back, but it's
Mhm.
how do we give back?
Yes.
And I'm very comfortable giving to organization and nonprofit charities where I know they're in the communities.
Hmm.
They're working, and for some charities, quite frankly, 100% of the funds you give actually go directly into the communities. I did have an experience where one childhood friend would write me notes and letters, and I had sent funds back to her. But I soon discovered it was a situation where someone was getting pregnant with several fathers, and there was a lot of other pathologies involved in that,
Mm.
and that I was really being used. And
Oh man.
so it happened, I was very young, and now I know to really put some boundaries around what I will give and what I will not give, and the power of saying no and keeping that as a full sentence. However, I'm one of the missions of my company is to educate the underserved. So
Yes.
I invest in funding scholarships, I invest in funding schools, having inner city high school students come to my office, being a mentor, going to high schools. I give back. I'm very proud of what I give. I feel that my life is blessed enough that I can give and give in a way that builds a legacy for me. And I value that very importantly.
I love that. And then, as part of like your personal financial success, have you, because you are financially stable, have you found yourself in a position where you've had to walk away from any kind of professional situation because it didn't serve you, but you knew that you would be okay because of where your finances were?
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
That's the beauty of having the flexibility of saying, I can walk away. It's interesting. I was on a panel with Gloria Steinem, who is the mother of feminism in this country. And we
Hmm.
were talking about finances, and she said, a number of women will stay in abusive relationships because they're financially dependent on the partner.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk to the young girls in my family who look at Instagram and they think that if I marry a rich husband, then I'll be just fine. And I'm saying, if you want to attract someone rich and wealthy, the best way to attract that person is for you to be what you're looking to attract.
Boom.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
100%.
I want to I attracted the same kind of husband that I am.
Right.
He would not have been attracted to me, and I would not have been attracted to him unless we saw common values. When it's lopsided and it's a sugar daddy situation, your soul is being stripped from you bit by bit by bit. And we are infusing too many affirmations of self worth in our young girls so that they know that they have the skills to build a career and be financially independent. Because your entire life, you will have to walk away from so many things: toxic people, toxic churches, toxic is gathering, toxic family members. Life is navigating all of those so that you can have a healthy, wealthy, vibrant life. And that applies to your finances as well.
I love that. I love that. Have just been such a light, and I'm looking forward to people being able to purchase your book. Where can they find the book, and then of the other resources that you have for people?
Absolutely. So, my book, Homeless to Millionaire, is on Amazon. Secondly, I have master classes, and it's Financial Abundance with Grace.com. And my business is graceglobalcapital.com. And I am very accessible. I run these classes. They are very dynamic. Come, bring your questions, and just let's climb this mountain of financial abundance together.
I love it. And just how, as charismatic as you are and such a great storyteller, but just have so much wealth of knowledge. I know that people can learn so much from you. So I'll put all of those things in the show notes, and looking forward to seeing you thrive and become more successful. But yeah, I really love your story, and it's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, Sima, and blessings to you, your audience, and every single endeavor you put your mind to.
Oh, thank you so much.